September 1806. The Lewis and Clark expedition was finally heading home. For more than 2 years, the men had crossed mountains, rivers, and a continent that seemed to have no end. Now the road home lay before them, but their food was almost gone. Then, along the riverbank, the forest offered them pawpaws. The hunters had returned with nothing. The party had only a few biscuits left. Beneath wide leaves hung clusters of smooth green fruit. The men gathered them in abundance. That evening, one of the most famous expeditions in American history depended on a food that millions of Americans today would walk past without recognizing. It was the pawpaw. From the outside, it looks a little like a green potato hanging from a tree. Cut it open and the surprise is immediate. The flesh is golden and soft, with a rich aroma often compared to banana, mango, and vanilla. This is the largest edible fruit native to the United States. It still grows across much of eastern North America. The tree survived. The fruit remained edible. The forests never stopped producing it. Yet pawpaw almost disappeared from ordinary American life. Why? The easy answer is that people stopped liking it, but that is not what happened. To understand how America forgot its own largest native fruit, we have to follow one ripe pawpaw out of the forest and toward the modern grocery store. It is a journey the fruit was never built to survive. Near the end of summer, an eastern forest can hide a strange little world beneath its taller trees. The first thing you notice is the leaves. They are long, broad, and drooping. In the soft green shade, they look almost tropical. Beneath them hang smooth fruits, sometimes alone, sometimes in heavy clusters. There are no neat rows, no signs, no bright produce labels. Just pawpaw trees growing beside streams, along river bottoms, and on rich woodland slopes. They can appear in thick patches. From a distance, such a patch looks like a small orchard that nobody planted. And that is the first surprise of this story. Pawpaw is not some rare fruit clinging to one forgotten valley. It grows naturally across a huge part of eastern North America. The second surprise comes when the fruit is opened. Inside that plain green skin is soft yellow flesh that looks more at home on a tropical island than in an Ohio woodland. Pawpaw belongs to the same broad plant family as cherimoya and soursop. Most members of that family prefer the tropics. Pawpaw is the cold country exception. That is why generations gave it names like the Indiana banana and the Hoosier banana. But pawpaw is not a lesser version of some imported fruit. It is completely at home here. It was shaped by American soil, American winters, and American forests. And no two encounters are exactly alike. One wild pawpaw may taste sweet and creamy. Another may be mild. A third may have a bitter edge. Some fruits are full of rich golden pulp. Others seem to contain more large brown seeds than flesh. That unevenness would later become a problem. But it was never enough to make the fruit useless. For people who knew the season, a good patch offered something precious: sweetness, energy, and fresh food growing beneath the trees. Then that knowledge began to fade. The pawpaw did not retreat deep into a wilderness where people could no longer reach it. In many places, it remained near roads, farms, riverbanks, and towns. The strange part is not that the tree disappeared. It did not. The strange part is that people stopped seeing it. How does a fruit grow across half a continent and still become invisible? The answer begins with the difference between finding food and knowing food. Long before pawpaw became a curiosity at a farmer's market, indigenous communities knew exactly what it was. They knew where the trees grew, they knew when the fruit softened, and most importantly, they knew that a short harvest did not have to mean a short supply. The Cherokee used pawpaw as food and used its inner bark to make cordage. The Iroquois cultivated the tree and preserved the fruit. They mashed the soft pulp, shaped it into small cakes, and dried those cakes in the sun or near a fire. Later, the dried fruit could be carried, stored, softened with water, or served with cornbread. It sounds simple, but simple does not mean unimportant. Fresh pawpaw lasts only a short time. Drying changed the clock. A fruit that might spoil within days could remain useful long after the branches were empty. That was not just a recipe, it was a way of thinking. The people using pawpaw did not demand that the tree produce all year. They adapted their habits to the fruit. When the harvest came, they gathered it. When there was too much to eat, they changed its form. The food and the knowledge belonged together. Settlers learned to eat pawpaw too. The fruit entered songs, place names, home gardens, and childhood memories. For many rural families, pawpaw was not exotic. It was simply part of late summer. Then came September 18th, 1806. William Clark recorded that his returning party had almost nothing to eat except a few biscuits. The hunters had found no game, but pawpaws were growing in great quantity along the shore. The expedition did not live on pawpaw for years. The fruit did not carry the men across the entire continent. The real story is smaller and more powerful because it is true. On a day when supplies were almost gone, the landscape still held food. The men only had to recognize it. Now consider the reversal. A fruit once useful enough to preserve, carry, and depend on. During shortage, later became unfamiliar to the people living inside its natural range. Why? Perhaps the flavor was too strong. Perhaps the texture was too soft. Perhaps people became tired of the large seeds. Those objections are real. Not every wild pawpaw tastes wonderful, but taste alone cannot explain the disappearance. People had eaten the fruit for generations. Even today, a good pawpaw can stop a first-time taster in mid-sentence. The flavor did not suddenly become worse when the supermarket became the center of American food life. Something else changed. The distance between the tree and the eater became longer. America did not forget pawpaw because the fruit failed. We forgot it because the modern grocery system was built for fruit that could survive the journey. Pawpaw could not. It was not banned, it was filtered out. Imagine holding a perfectly ripe pawpaw. Its skin gives slightly beneath your fingers. The fruit feels heavy. Its sweet aroma is finally strong enough to tell you that the moment has arrived. If you are standing beneath the tree, this is exactly what you want. If you are trying to send that fruit across the country, the clock has already beaten you. A ripe pawpaw may remain good at room temperature for only 2 to 4 days. Not weeks, days. In that short time, it must be picked, sorted, packed, moved, displayed, sold, and eaten. Every hour matters. Every extra hand leaves a mark. Every delay turns sweetness into waste. With bananas, the industry found a powerful answer. Pick them green and firm, ship them over long distances, then finish the ripening later. So why not do the same with pawpaw? Because a pawpaw picked too early may never become the fruit you hope to eat. Research in Kentucky found that immature pawpaws did not ripen normally after harvest. The fruit creates a cruel choice. Pick it ripe and it may bruise before reaching the shelf. Pick it hard and it may arrive looking fine but tasting wrong. Now put that fruit into a modern supply chain. First comes the picker, then the crate, then a truck, then perhaps a distributor, a warehouse, and another truck. Finally, the produce aisle. At every step, the pawpaw becomes softer, its thin skin bruises, its flesh darkens. Fruit from the same tree may ripen on different days, so a grower cannot simply clear the whole orchard in one efficient harvest. Even the green skin does not offer an easy signal. One fruit may be ready, the one beside it may need more time. To a person who knows Pawpaw, these are manageable details. To a national retailer, they are risk. The grocery business needs time. Time to inspect, time to transport, time to place fruit on a shelf, time for a customer to find it. Pawpaw offers almost none. And then the fruit meets the shopper at the worst possible moment. If it was picked early enough to survive the trip, the flavor may disappoint. If it was picked at its best, it may arrive bruised. A customer buys one pawpaw, tastes it once and decides the whole fruit is bad. The journey damages the experience. Then the fruit receives the blame. This is where the mystery becomes much larger than Pawpaw. The supermarket does not always select the food with the best flavor, the deepest history, or the strongest connection to the land. It selects food that can be counted, stacked, stored, and moved with the least uncertainty. Pawpaw was made for a short relationship. Tree, hand, mouth. The grocery system demanded a long one. Orchard, truck, warehouse, distribution center, shelf, customer. That difference decided what Americans came to think of as normal fruit. Apples, oranges, and bananas appeared under bright lights every week of the year. Pawpaw arrived for a brief season in places where most people no longer gathered food. Then absence began to feed itself. Children stopped growing up with Pawpaw. Cookbooks stopped expecting it. Stores did not ask farmers for a fruit customers could not name. Farmers did not plant more of a fruit. Stores did not request. Each side waited for the other. The forest still had pawpaw trees, but the culture around them was disappearing. Eventually, people looked at the empty space on the supermarket shelf and reached a quiet conclusion. If Pawpaw was any good, surely it would be here. But that conclusion had the story backward. The United States Department of Agriculture points to short shelf life, low yields, and the difficulty of harvesting and shipping Pawpaw as major barriers to a large market. There was no secret meeting to erase the fruit. The system did something far more ordinary. It rewarded everything Pawpaw was not. At this point, it would be easy to believe that Pawpaw never had a chance. But America once came surprisingly close to turning it into a dependable native crop. In 1916, the American Genetics Association announced a national contest. The goal was simple: find the best pawpaws in the country. Fruit arrived from 75 different trees. Some were larger, some tasted better, some carried more flesh and fewer seeds. A pawpaw owned by Mrs. Ketter of Ironton, Ohio, won the contest. 6 other trees were judged good enough to preserve and grow again. For a moment, the future looked open. The contest proved that wild pawpaws were not one unchangeable thing. People could select the best trees and slowly improve the fruit, just as generations had improved apples, peaches, and pears. One of the people who took that future seriously was George Zimmerman. Beginning in the 1920s, Zimmerman built a remarkable collection near Piketown, Pennsylvania. He gathered more than 60 named pawpaw varieties and seedlings. He crossed promising trees and waited for the next generation to bear fruit. This kind of work moves at the speed of trees. Years pass before a seedling reveals whether it carries something special. A better flavor, a smaller seed, a heavier crop. There is no way to hurry the answer. Zimmerman kept waiting. Then he died in 1941, before some of his most promising crosses ever produced fruit. Only a small part of his collection reached an experimental farm. Other trees were neglected. Labels vanished, records weakened. Orchards that had once held decades of hope slowly disappeared. A later history reached a heartbreaking conclusion. Of the many Pawpaw varieties selected between 1900 and 1950, all but 2 were lost. Pause on that for a moment. The species did not go extinct. Wild trees still stood in the forest. What disappeared were choices. This fruit was sweeter. That tree carried fewer seeds. This one ripened more evenly. Those discoveries were stored in living branches. When the branches died, the discoveries died with them. A written name in an old catalogue could not bring the flavour back. Pawpaw was forgotten twice, first by the market, then by the breeding system that might have helped it enter the market. And the fruit already presented breeders with real challenges. A patch may look like many pawpaw trees, but some of those trunks can be connected underground and share the same genetics. For reliable fruit, growers usually need 2 genetically different trees so one can pollinate the other. In plain English, 2 trees are not always a true pair. Add uneven wild flavor, large seeds, delicate fruit, and uncertain harvests, and the counter-argument becomes clear. Pawpaw was not a perfect commercial crop destroyed by a single villain. It had genuine weaknesses. But apples had weaknesses too. So did peaches. The difference is that those fruits received generations of investment, research, and patient selection. Pawpaw often received a few determined people working almost alone. One of them was Neil Peterson. Over roughly 20 years, Peterson evaluated more than 1,000 pawpaw trees grown from some of the best surviving material he could find. Season after season, he looked for the traits the earlier breeders had chased: better flavor, useful yields, and fruit worth keeping. He was not rescuing one ancient tree. He was restarting an interrupted future. That is why the old claim that pawpaws simply lost to better fruit is too easy. It did not enter a fair race between finished crops. It entered the race unfinished, and then much of its training was forgotten. If a long journey helped pawpaw disappear, its return may begin with a shorter one. Not every food needs to cross a continent. In the Appalachian foothills of Ohio, producer Chris Chamiel built a business around that idea. He collected pawpaws and processed them before the brief season could slip away. The simplest answer was also one of the most effective: freeze the pulp. Once the flesh was removed from the fragile fruit and frozen, the clock changed. Pawpaw no longer had to survive a warehouse or look perfect under supermarket lights. Its flavor could reach cooks, bakeries, breweries, and ice cream makers long after the fresh fruit would have spoiled. The old problem had not vanished. The form had changed. That solution feels surprisingly close to the older story. Indigenous communities dried pawpaw pulp to carry the harvest forward. Modern producers freeze it. Different technology. Same basic wisdom. Do not force a delicate fruit to remain what it cannot remain. Change the fruit before time changes it for you. Chamiel also helped create the Ohio Pawpaw Festival. There, pawpaw became more than an item for sale. People came to taste it, meet growers, hear its history, and celebrate a fruit connected to their own region. The festival grew to draw about 10,000 people over 3 days. In 2009, Ohio named pawpaw its native state fruit. Think about what had been rebuilt. First came recognition, then curiosity, then demand. A visitor at a festival does not expect every pawpaw to look identical. A customer at a farmer's market can ask when the fruit will be ready. A grower can explain that the soft one should be eaten today. Knowledge travels with the food again. That may be pawpaw's most realistic future. Fresh fruit can make the short trip from orchard to farmer's market, restaurant, or local customer. Frozen pulp can travel farther. Better varieties can offer more flesh, fewer seeds, and a more dependable flavor. Small orchards and forest farms can grow the fruit without pretending it must become the next banana. Home growers can take part too, but patience matters. Pawpaw usually needs 2 genetically different trees for pollination, and young trees take time to produce. If you simply want to taste one, begin with a trusted grower or farmer's market. If collecting wild fruit, correct identification is essential. Gather only where it is legal and clean with the landowner's permission. Use fully ripe fruit. Eat only the pulp and discard the skin and seeds. Individual tolerance varies. The goal is not to replace every supermarket banana with a pawpaw. In fact, forcing pawpaw into a year-round national system might change the fruit until it loses the very character people are trying to recover. Its better future may be smaller, seasonal, and closer to home. Local orchards, living collections, short supply chains, frozen pulp, people who know when the fruit is ready and care enough to tell someone else. Pawpaw does not need to conquer the supermarket to stop being forgotten. It needs a path from the tree to the table that respects what kind of fruit it is. Return to the riverbank in September 1806. The expedition is moving home through an immense American landscape. The hunters have returned empty-handed. Only a few biscuits remain. Then someone recognizes the broad leaves. Food was there. Not because a wagon delivered it, not because a store stocked it. It was there because the forest still held it, and someone knew what to look for. That is the whole pawpaw story. Indigenous communities knew how to preserve it. Travelers knew how to gather it. Breeders saw what it might become. Modern growers are discovering how to bring it back without asking it to become something else. The pawpaw did not fail to survive. It survived the system that forgot it. America's largest native fruit is still here. What disappeared was the chain of knowledge connecting the forest to the table. And that is the clearest takeaway from this story. When a food vanishes from the shelf, it does not always mean the food failed. Sometimes the journey failed the food. That journey can still be changed. Should pawpaw remain a seasonal regional treasure, or should America try to turn it into a national supermarket crop? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe to Forgotten Crop for more food history buried beneath our feet.